help you through that, get through the detoxification.
Yep.
But the educational part, I don't think we should be applying them with excuses that they can use for the next relapse.
But they do use the excuses, and I agree with you there. They have to take control of their addiction, and they have to own it. Here's, a lot of people say, I can't believe that Susie took all of Mom's jewelry and went and hawked it just for one more hit. How could she have done that? Susie, for some reason or another, if she's that addicted, she can't even see that deed. That's how bad the addiction gets. They can't even see the evil that they're committing, and that has taken over their lives. All they see is their next hit, no matter how they get to it. They don't see Mom's jewelry or anything else as being an issue. They just, after you confront them on it, they'll feel remorseful or act like it, but they're not. And they don't have the capacity to have that. So you are so right, Dave, when you say it is a problem in society. If we leave it alone and not do something positive about it, it can only get worse.
Yeah, it travels right through families and is merciless, absolutely merciless. So I would be very much looking forward to some change in that. If you're elected, I know our current Attorney General is not doing much in that area. She, in my estimation, is butting her nose in all kinds of things that it doesn't belong in. In fact, I'm in a process, and I'm going to share this right now with anyone who wants to jump on board. I'm going to be filing an ethics complaint. I monitor what a lot of our politicians say online, social media, news blurbs, and about a month or so ago, comes across my news feed. She took a shadowed poke at President Trump as attacking women, and the only way for you to counter that, and this was a blurb right in her text up above, a meme that had the address, and she recommended that you go and donate to places that will fund Planned Parenthood. And it had the state logo on it. This is not, I mean, she's very clever. She has Maura Healey and then AG Maura Healey. When she's on her Maura Healey social page and uses the state logo and tells people the only way to fight a racist President Trump is to donate to Planned Parenthood, she's crossed the line.
She has crossed the line, that's right. That is
Am I
correct.
wrong for wanting to file on her for that?
You are absolutely right. That's an illegal use of a state symbol.
It absolutely is, and I've screenshotted that in case it happens to disappear, and it will be part of my complaint. Anyone who wants to jump on who's listening, you know how to get a hold of me. All right, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the opioid stuff as you're on the campaign trail, but I want to shift gears here for a few minutes. I want to talk about immigration.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, I can't represent everybody, and I rarely talk for other people, but I am going to represent those out there right now that are looking at what we're seeing with illegals crossing our border and have equated it to a current modern day election rigging as they're trying to bring these people into our communities illegally, give them licenses, give them a right to vote. To me, this is just an early rigging of the election and a Cloward-Pittman style destruction of our economy. We cannot afford that. We've got our own. We've got homeless veterans not far from where we are sitting right now. We could walk and see homeless veterans here on the streets of Worcester, out in Springfield closer to me, under the bridges out there. They got tent cities of veterans that need help, yet we're giving away the candy store to people whose first order of business was to violate our laws. And we've got, it isn't like the laws of this state haven't spoken, or the laws of the nation either. Well, we've got a representative, what is it, Michelle Dubois from up around here.
She's from Brockton.
Yeah, I mean, and here's a woman who came out publicly and openly teaching and warning illegals how to evade ICE. I mean, isn't that a direct violation of Title 8, Section 1324 of the U.S. Code. They're not supposed to be doing that, yet their campaign messages include it.
Yeah.
Winner, you know, we're always pointing our finger around as someone else to blame. The rest of those fingers are pointing back at us. Why are we not holding our elected officials accountable for this stuff? When they stand up and tout illegals over our own people, I mean, I don't know how they hate America so much, but that almost seems like what we're seeing. What do you think about the immigration crisis? And if you could, as a constitutional attorney, immigration, the word immigration, like the word democracy, is not mentioned in our Constitution anywhere. But naturalization is. All right? The title, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4, I believe. And then again in the 14th Amendment, talks about naturalization. And we got federal court rulings that say that is an exclusive right of the federal government. We do have our state constitutions and laws here to protect ourselves from criminal elements. But the standardizing of naturalization is the federal government's issue, and they seem to be ignoring it.
They are. And let me just speak just a little bit about Representative Michelle DeBoer. You're absolutely right about her. But here's the issue what she was doing. She was announcing in the press that ICE was going through certain areas. And everybody said, well, she should be arrested for that. She shouldn't be able to do that. It comes to, it's a fine line, but here's the line. If she was calling individuals up and said, I've got information because I'm a government official that ICE is coming to your house this afternoon, leave now, then she would be interfering with the administration of justice. But to say that an agency is about to do their job in our area is a little bit different. It's not a conspiracy like it would be if she was notifying individuals and say, I happen to know on the QT they got a warrant for your arrest, leave now. Now that would be interfering with justice.
Isn't she coaching the public?
She is coaching, no question about it. And I would say that would be unpatriotic, and I would say that the voters should vote her out of office for something like that, but it doesn't reach the level of criminality. Comes close, but doesn't reach it, because it's just her giving a mass thing saying, I understand ISIS are coming into town today. That doesn't quite have the specifics needed to commit a crime.
Couldn't anyone go to a court of competent jurisdiction, ask law enforcement to get an administrative search warrant? I mean, given her blanket generic comments to the public, the impetus is there for her to likely have these illegals amongst her colleagues and friends list. Couldn't they do an administrative search warrant and actually search her social media, see if maybe she did in fact say, hey Julio, you know, watch out, they're coming down your street?
Okay, so now you're giving specifics, and specifics is what develops probable cause. Specific information develops probable cause. General information that, we know Brockton has a lot of illegals and ICE is coming to town today. That's not specific enough. It wouldn't be under those conditions.
No, I mean, this is a problem, is we have sanctuary cities, and they're clamoring, some of the left, for sanctuary state status.
There is no question that government officials that encourage sanctuary state status are conspirators against federal law. No question in my mind about that.
And that's exactly the way I look at it too. And what compounds this and makes it worse, we're seeing other states right now who are issuing their delegates based on the popular vote at the national level. So all their delegates for president, the popular vote, like last time they say Clinton got the popular vote, that their delegates would be issued. That's their way of going around the Electoral College. Is you have a sanctuary city. This is a magnet, like a moth to a flame. These illegals could swarm into these areas. And if they take the census, it sends a number of how many individuals in the jurisdiction. Obviously, it's a progressively run jurisdiction. Money is going to pour into these areas in support, and it takes a bad situation and makes it worse. It puts down a poison taproot that's going to be that much harder to get rid of.
I agree.
But we're losing it here. Where you say vote them out, and a lot of people use that term. Not only politicians, but us too, vote them out, vote them out. It's getting difficult to do that. Informing the public is a challenge. Getting them off their duffs to go out and vote is a challenge. But now we're seeing areas where they'll have a sanctuary situation. They'll have HUD involved with free housing. And as soon as they get a whole bunch of minorities in an area, because they've all been convinced now Republicans bad, Democrats good, I think they're starting to wake up to that a little bit, but that's been the trend up to this point.
Right.
And now you have your local polling, they're pushing for polls in areas that you wouldn't go in the bright light of day. They're pushing for polling locations in areas that are awash in illegals. And, I don't care what color you are. If you're an American, you deserve the right to vote and input and everything.
Right.
But they've been brainwashed into thinking certain things. We're going to have cities that are almost irretrievable pretty soon.
Well, again, this is a holistic approach. Trump just won it's huge. He says it's bigly, meaning it's a huge decision he just got out of the Supreme Court. He can take some Pentagon funds, defense funds, and use it to continue on the wall. Now it sounds like it's a no-brainer. It should have been a no-brainer, but it took the Supreme Court to say that he can do that. So he sees the problem. Here's what I've always said. When you don't have a wall, you got people coming across this border to become, not to stereotype, but to become chambermaids and landscapers. They're risking their lives coming through the deserts to be chambermaids and landscapers. There are also some who are intent to do us harm. For ISIS and Al-Qaeda and any other people that want to do us harm are also got the will to come through and do something. We need the wall. We need protection. That's number one. Number two, a lot of people are saying, well, the Attorney General doesn't have a whole lot to do with this, but my personal feeling is we need catch and release. Catch them and take them to the border and release them back. Forget the rest of this nonsense. If they're here illegally, that means they don't belong here. What do you mean to give them they got to come for a court date? You're going to give them a summons and say show up? How nutty is that?
Yeah,
it just goes to show you how crazy it's got. They're not going to show up for court. So if they're illegal, then they don't belong here. They got to come through. And by the way, don't seek asylum here at the gate or jump in and try to come in at the door. Go to a consulate. We got consulates in every major city in the planet.
Isn't that what they're instructed to do once they leave their nation and go into another nation's border, is they can seek asylum from that consulate.
And that's what they should do.
All the way up through South America. That's why I don't want to call them immigrants.
Right.
Because they right on the face, the first thing that they're refusing to do and rejecting is an immigration process. To file, to do things properly, they're rejecting that. And I think anyone coming across the border who rejects those policies that are put in place, we stop calling them immigrants of any kind. They are illegals.
They are illegals.
They're invading at that point. So I don't see who's running that down there. What's causing this caravan that was in the news for so long? What was the impetus for that, and how much came from within the borders of the United States in terms of support?
There's no question that this was an attempt to embarrass the Trump administration. But Trump did it right. He told Mexico, they're not coming in here, so now you're going to deal with them. And the mayor of Tijuana went ballistic. He said, we can't support all these people. We just don't have the funds. And so the government of Mexico realized we're not caving. So now they have put troops on their southern border. They should have done it before by not letting all those people come through. But when they encouraged those caravans to come up, they're stuck in Mexico and stuck in Tijuana. Yeah, it's the worst thing that they should have done. But I'll tell you what can we do in Massachusetts? Well, right now, Maura Healey's policy is that Massachusetts is a sanctuary state, and she's running it as that. She literally believes that, and she has said that. That's what she would like to see. She would like to see Massachusetts as a sanctuary state. Now, I'm completely against it. I'm on the other side. I'm saying, and just as you had said about veterans who are in tent cities because there's no funds to help them, we have to help Americans first. We'll help them in their country. We're sending them billions of dollars to their country. Maybe they need an audit. Find out where all that money is going to. But this is what Maura Healey was saying. Well, they should be here, and once they get here, they should be a sanctuary for them. Not from my perspective. I say that every state trooper in Massachusetts, every state trooper should be a special agent for ICE. They should be trained properly to investigate and detain and hold until ICE can get somewhere, take the people to where they should go. We don't know who is in that element of people. We don't know what dangers may be lurking there. And until they do it right, if you do it right, you have papers. We don't have a problem. We want you to come. Trump has said this. Every patriotic American I know has said, we don't want to keep people from coming to this country. Just do it right.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate that too. 'Cause I'm pretty hard on the illegals on a regular basis, but that doesn't negate the fact that I do believe this country is, and its track history proves it, has been made stronger by those immigrants that come in because they got a thirst for liberty.
Absolutely.
All right, not because they're out with their hand out. They're going to be a net drain. And those standards and processes and procedures in place as they immigrate into the country and naturalize, again going back to that constitutional underpinning, this is about security and strength. Okay, this is when we say, English is the common language.
Right.
It is not because we are racist. We want these people who have a thirst for liberty, who have a skill set to contribute, who love their families, and a good example of a loving family, to come in and be able to efficiently and immediately
and contribute
in everything.
Right.
To talk with their neighbors, to talk with their local government, their state government, their law enforcement, their
customers,
employers, their customers. It's about strength, and to think it's anything else is a bunch of window dressing and propaganda.
Right.
Those are in place to make them strong, stand on your own 2 feet, Americans. The moment they're naturalized in here, they're not in there for racist reasons. It's about strength and national security. I mean, why would we allow a policy that would introduce a flood, an unsustainable flood of people into this nation? Just crunch the numbers, this is a basic math here. Our deficit's already going through the roof. We've been deficit spending for way too long.
And we just did it again.
If their policies, when there is an audit of the finances, says you will bankrupt the nation with this policy, why is no one paying attention? Because that is what the numbers dictate.
It is what it dictates. You're absolutely right.
So, we got to get off from that. We got processes and procedures. If they deny those, you're no longer an immigrant. You're an illegal invader and should be treated as such. If you want to immigrate in, if you have that thirst for liberty, you want to acclimate into the country, I'm all supportive of that. And a lot of times they try to portray us as racist because we want to stick to those standards, but there's a real rational, common sense reason for why those are in place. The country has provided help and services for those people that do take that righteous path. We'll teach you how to speak English. We'll help you find work. Your neighbors will be good neighbors. But that's not the process right now. I'm really worried what's going to happen around election time. I don't know whether we're going to be able to trust the results of this election coming up. But this is such a profound problem. We're seeing every week there's stuff in the newspapers where we know people in this country illegally are gonna be casting a vote.
We need voter identification. We absolutely need it.
No, I want to spend a couple minutes, got 10 minutes left. If there's any questions from the audience, we'll try to wiggle those in. But I want to talk real briefly, maybe we can get you on the show another time, because this is one of my pet peeves here, is you mentioned corruption a couple times in your earlier presentation. I now, through an effort I've had back home, we were dealing with an outbreak of child predators. We had a density of sex offenders in my town that I believe there was a sex offender for every 232 residents. Astronomical numbers. We figured out why our density is there in part, but as I was investigating this, I was looking, you know, for those things that are institutionalized. That's really where the volumes and the numbers come from. And I bumped into a 2017 state auditor's report from Auditor Bunk's office of DCF, and they had identified 118 children who were knowingly molested and raped while in state care and foster care, and their policy that they defended was one of not reporting it as a critical incident. Critical incidents were a gash, a concussion, things that couldn't be swept under the rug. All right, well, for 118 kids during that audit period, which was like a year, a little over, and don't quote me on that, but for that audit period to identify 118 children raped and molested in state custody with a policy of not reporting, and then look at the money that changes hands. As I was investigating this, I realized that DCF and the care of troubled kids took the same path that global warming has. It was an issue that was politicized, monetized, and foisted on the people. We have pay that's going out to social workers the moment they intervene in a family. When a child is taken, there's another cash payout. When they go into foster care, there's another cash payout. And when they're adopted, it's another cash payout. It's corrupt from top to bottom.
It is corrupt, yep, no question about it.
This is the very agency that was tasked with protecting our kids. It seems to me, from my early investigations, have institutionalized the abuse. I think a lot of, and I always look, you know, I've got limited time and money, resources myself. I always look for the biggest bang for my buck. How could we help the most number of kids the quickest? Sadly to say, I think it's focusing more attention in DCF and CPS. I think this is an area that deserves a lot of sanitizing, bright light of day. Is there, do you have any reservations about looking deeply into the administrative procedures, how these families are broken up? Because one interesting statistic that I like to leave with you is that once state involvement with a family has been instituted, a child is 80% more likely to die in state custody than those left back in the home. 80%. So once there's involvement of DCF, if they take the kid, 80% more likely to die than if they leave the child in the home. Do you have any reservations at all about looking into the goings-on of these agencies?
I have no reservations at all. That's a staggering number when you said 118, because you only need one. But 118 shows that there's a conspiracy, and conspirators are evil people. They come up with a plan, and they decided to perpetuate evil, and they will either do it they will somehow work to keep it quiet or keep it suppressed, but they won't end the process. They'll allow ways to continue it and to keep it going. It's much like when you get a state representative that harass one of the staffers, and the staffers take some action, and then they could get some money. It's a payout with your funds, and it's a confidential. They have the victim has to sign a confidentiality agreement that you get the money, but You cannot speak about it. I'm going to end that. That is against what we call public policy, but nobody in government is saying that. I would end that. And when you said a child was raped under there and the DCF didn't report it, they are mandated reporters.
I know.
They got to report it to somebody. And I got to tell you something else. There's something else that's even more egregious. When you were talking about earlier about sexual predators and some of the stuff that goes on in high schools, that high schools actually invite people in to discuss certain deviant lifestyles, and they actually have them. And some of the materials that they leave behind are very pornographic. And no one is speaking about that or saying something about it. I'll tell you something. The teachers, the superintendents, the principals, the teachers are all mandated reporters. And if I get a hold of it and find out about it, I'll do some grand jury investigations, and we'll start indicting people for why they haven't protected our children against this, instead of encouraging this stuff in the school system. The school system should be neutral. School system should not be advocating one thing or the other than what their mandate is, to teach and instruct the children.
They're already trying to socially engineer our kids and raise our
Absolutely,
kids,
yeah.
and I think they don't know their limits there for sure. Now, one thing I noticed, I've had people come up to me, because I'm a pretty traditional, classic, constitutional conservative. I believe in a traditional lifestyle and all that. I was surprised. I've had individuals come up to me and said, Dave, you really got to be careful out there, since you have a lot of gay and lesbian people that are following you right now. Because going back about a year and a half, I went off kilter. There was a local case where a pedophile, 3 brothers, all level 3 sex offenders, and they were treating the kids in our community like a buffet. It was sickening. They brought this guy into court, and they let him go on his own recognizance, exactly 0 bail. So I was fit to be tied. I'm up at the courthouse, I'm streaming live, and I took issue with it. And as I bumped into more aspects of our research in what we were doing, the normalization of pedophilia is going on all over. Where I'm sure you all saw the drag time story hours in our libraries and things like that.
I've seen those stories.
Here's what I think is brewing under the surface right now. I'm going to share this with you. The gay and lesbian community, I don't agree with the lifestyle. I don't hate on them. My faith tells me I should love everybody, and I don't hate on them for that. I'm displeased with it. It's not what I prefer, and I happily show them and explain a better way. But they're following the show because their community is now the LGBTQ and all these others. When they got to the T, all right, gays and lesbians have identified there are 2 genders.
Right. They know that there's 2. Most of the ones that I have met, and I've had a lot support me because of the Second Amendment, because they're gun people.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But they've told me that they don't have. There's not an issue for them. Mm-hmm. They know there's only 2 genders. Yeah,
they're frightened now. They've welcomed into their house, if you will, where they thought it was early support for their agenda. Turned out that the trans community has got their own agenda, and it's not a very wholesome one. It's a direct threat to our kids. I think they are preying on our children at a time where adolescence is a confusing time in general. They know they're susceptible to all kinds of opinions. I see this translating into death statistics. Is depression and things hit when these kids are so confused by what they were told early on. Life isn't the way it was told. We're already seeing that starting to materialize. I think it's going to get worse as we go. But I see some resistance from within the gay and lesbian community against this. And I like to figure out how we can work with them. I don't have to like their lifestyle. I just got to hate pedophiles more. All right, and I'm happy to work with them where I can. But DCF and CPS, we've got to be careful here. And if we get to sit down and do another show together,
I'd be glad to.
I know how you are on the Second Amendment. Me and you have been at a few events together.
That's right.
And I'm comfortable with you on that. I'd like to hear more about this and the opioids
Sure.
in the future. Before we wrap up, is there anyone who's got a quick question for the guests? Yes, sir.
Yes. Could you comment on what has been called the Negro-gate scandal, which involved the state police, district judge Dudley, and family members, district attorney? Are you aware of that when it occurred in Worcester County about the same time as Troopergate?
Yes, I am. I know just about all the facts on that case. And the trooper, the actual trooper involved did the absolute correct thing. They are required to report everything as they see it. They are trained in the State Police Academy to write everything down as it occurs and as you know it. And they're also told, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. In other words, if you try to say it later, or I forgot, or I don't know why I didn't put it, you're stuck with it. And so this trooper was a relatively new trooper that was involved in that case. Now, I've been in the system for 30 years, and this case here was a corruption case that didn't have to happen. It served no purpose, but it showed how corrupt the system could be. I'll give you an example. This woman that was arrested for drunk driving, operating under the influence, she said some things, and the troopers wrote it all down, but they never charged her with anything more than what she was initially arrested on. And she was going to plead out anyway. So this is what usually happens in 99% of the cases where someone's going to plead out. There's a police report. It's 3 or 4 pages long. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. Person said things, swore at the officer, did all kinds of stuff. But the guy's going to plead out, or the defendant's going to plead out. So, the assistant district attorney, who is reading the charges, only focuses on the facts as they relate to the drunk driving charge. He doesn't read all the other nonsense. He just gives those facts, and the judge says to the defendant, are those facts essentially correct? The defendant says yes, and the judge says, okay, I find there are sufficient facts to accept your plea, and now what does the government recommend? The government says something. Sometimes it's agreed, sometimes it's an unagreed disposition. And the judge decides which ones he's going to take. And if he's going to do something differently, he says it. And then the defendant has the right to withdraw the plea or to say, okay, I'm going to do what the judge said. Sometimes the judges will extend the probation. Instead of being 12 months, he'll say, I think he should be 18 months and I think he needs to do a program for this or that. And he says, I'm going to put it there. Do you still want to